Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic weeks so far. It is Thursday. We are recording a bit early in the morning because I have a busy schedule here. So if it goes up and something happens, you're like, oh my God, well, this is being taped on Thursday morning. Hope you guys, like I said, are having a great week. I've been down at the beach for the first several days of the week with my youngest on fall break. I will be with my two older boys on fall break next week. So a little bit of a scattershot of shows as fall break season is underway. Fall break, kind of an amazing invention. Did not exist that I recall at all when I was in school. Now everybody travels October. At least in the South. I don't know how common fall breaks are nationwide, but everybody gets one now. And so my boys are getting older. I've got one going off to college next year, so we're trying to get in as many trips as we possibly can. All right, we got a lot of stories to talk about. This Kyren Lacy absurdity, to me, represents everything that's wrong with sports media in general and much of the media in a larger context. I'll explain why. Paul Finebaum, some of you have been following this and the ESPN mess that was created there. I will explain what happened. Arch Manning attacked by The Athletic ridiculously. Bill Belichick and UNC, all is not well with Chapel Bill. Joe Flacco to the Bengals. And oh, by the way, serious story. Middle East peace may be brought by the Trump administration, the release after 2 years of the hostages taken by Hamas that are still living. All of that and more we will get into. But let's go ahead and start with this Kyren Lacy story. So, look, I'm going to give you the background, and the guys, you can layer some of whatever videos make sense as I am talking. That I know, for instance, the speeding car. Here is essentially what happened. And I encourage you to go watch the video that the Louisiana police put out. Kyren Lacy was driving at a high rate of speed in the direction of oncoming traffic. He passed 4 different vehicles. It's a 2-lane road. He passed 4 different vehicles and then jogged back over, yanked his car back over after he passed those vehicles. The oncoming traffic, there was a guy driving, I believe it was a truck, who yanked his car to the right to avoid what he thought was going to be a head-on collision with Kyren Lacy. I want you to think about this. Someone is trying to pass. If you've ever been on a 2-lane road, someone gets outside of an area where you're not allowed to pass. He's driving, I believe it was a green Dodge Charger, and he tries to pass these 4 different vehicles. He's driving recklessly. Someone is coming straight at you. You are driving straight at them. You have very little time to react based on the high rate of speed of someone coming at you while you are also progressing towards them. One car yanks itself off the right side of the road. That car yanks itself to the right to try to avoid. A car behind that one yanks to the left to try to avoid and then runs into a vehicle going the opposite direction and kills a person there. Kyren Lacy has already dodged back in front of the traffic, keeps going. First call reportedly that he makes after not stopping at the scene of the accident, which is taking place right behind him, is to a criminal defense attorney. And that obviously is indicative that he believes he had done something that was of a very significant nature. Somebody dies. There is a grand jury proceeding that is going to be occurring for this traffic incident. Before the grand jury can indict, Kyren Lacy is pursued by police after reports that he fired a gun into the ground, and Kyren Lacy shoots himself, commits suicide. Again, he had not been indicted. There was a grand jury that was going to be presented that would potentially charge him with negligent homicide. This is actually not that complicated of a story, okay? Guy drives recklessly. The police, based on their investigation and the witness statements, which all say, including to the extent that it matters, what appears to be a black truck driver. They have the faces blocked out in the video that is posted by the Louisiana police. All of the witnesses say this accident was caused by Kyren Lacy. They didn't know who was driving. They may not have even known the race of the driver, driving recklessly in his green Dodge Charger. They all specifically reference the car and the fact that he was facing oncoming traffic. Two different cars veered away from potentially running into them. This is super embarrassing for ESPN. Now, I give credit to Pat McAfee and Scott Van Pelt, who have both apologized for their initial reporting on this case. But ultimately, as is often the case, the person who is the most toxic inside of ESPN is Ryan Clark. As I am doing this on a Thursday morning, Ryan Clark has not yet apologized. This is what he said on ESPN after Monday Night Football, a phenomenal game. Credit to Trevor Lawrence for getting up from what should have been a sack that may have well ended the game to score a rushing touchdown in, was it 31-28, I believe, win over the Kansas City Chiefs. But instead of talking about that game, Ryan Clark decides that this is racism, that a black man has been unfairly treated, that he is a victim. And this is what Ryan Clark said on ESPN. This is an embarrassment to the network. Watch.
Yes, please. Yes. I beg your pardon. I did want to clear space for this.
1 second, please.
This is important.
Yes, guys, Kyren Lacy was supposed to be in the NFL. Kyren Lacy was accused of something and being investigated for something that he didn't do, and he died having to live with the guilt and the consequences of a guilty man knowing he was innocent. It recently was discovered that he was 72 yards away from the crash, that police and state policemen tried to coerce and doctor and use ways to manipulate statements that put this young man behind bars. They changed his joy, they changed his life, and eventually he took his own life. This was supposed to be a career, but at least he was supposed to be here. At some point throughout his career, I would expect to have said his name. So I'm going to say his name tonight.
Amen.
Kyren Lacy was innocent. Kyren Lacy should be here with us. Nothing will ever repair or replace the pain that their parents, that his parents have to feel and his loved ones have to feel. But we could say his name. There were so many stations that ran the fact that he was being investigated. So I wanted to make sure here with Scott, we could say that he was an innocent man and at least know that he has that as he rests.
You and I talked about this earlier tonight, and I'll just share with them what I share with you. I can't recall ever seeing something that made me react viscerally to the point that I felt like my hands were trembling to think that there's video that shows that this is not at all what happened. And that young man took his life. And so I will not say any more. It's your thoughts here. I just wanted to echo.
Thank you very much.
No, and my apologies for forgetting that because this is a more important thing than what we're talking about tonight. Ryan Clark, I appreciate you always.
All right, in making all of these comments, Ryan Clark is relying entirely on one side of the story, go figure, from the defense attorney in this case. I don't begrudge the defense attorney for trying to put his client's story in its most favorable light. That is the job of a defense attorney. I have been a defense attorney before. I've had to represent people who have done awful things or been alleged to have done awful things. That is the way that the advocacy system works in our country. So I'm not begrudging anything the defense attorney said here. What I am saying is Ryan Clark is not smart enough to understand that you cannot take 100% what either the defense or the prosecution says as being representative of the full story, because they are advocates. They are not impartial observers of the facts. Their job is to look at the facts and try to put the case in the most favorable light of those facts. Particularly that is the case when it comes to a defense attorney whose client is potentially going to be charged with a very serious crime, may well face years in prison, potentially life in prison, potentially the death penalty, depending on what the charges are. And so the defense attorney is always trying to get the media to buy the story that he or she is selling. Here, Ryan Clark accepted it whole cloth. The next morning, the Louisiana police release a video which proves Kyren Lacy was speeding, going the wrong direction, that is in the wrong lane in a two-lane highway. There are multiple witnesses that all say he caused this accident. Now, whether a Louisiana jury would have, and by the way, he thought he did something wrong because he immediately called a criminal defense attorney. Whether a Louisiana jury would have convicted him or not is a fair question. That's the purpose of a jury system. We don't know because he killed himself before he could be charged with negligent homicide of a vehicular nature in this particular case. But this is not complicated. Kyren Lacy is not the victim here. He's certainly not innocent of all wrongdoing. The actual victim is the person who was just driving on the road and ended up dead. 78-year-old guy. So if you want to focus on this case, all of the focus should be on the guy who died, who clearly was doing nothing wrong. He just went out for a drive and someone plowed into him. Again, based on all the witnesses, they believe that accident happened because of Kyren Lacy. Now, some of you said, like, well, he didn't actually hit him himself. Some of you are nincompoops, including Ryan Clark. You can be criminally negligent. That is, your rate of your behavior is so criminal, is so negligent that it rises to a level of criminality. Most of the time, cases of negligence are assessed in vehicular cases by civil courts. That is, you're driving down the road, you run into somebody else. Sometimes your behavior can be so negligent behind the wheel that it rises to a significant criminal nature. So this is not an uncommon case at all. Pat McAfee also got caught up in the Kyren Lacy drama, said that he was a victim. To Pat McAfee's credit, then the story, the video from the Louisiana police came out, and this was Pat McAfee's comments on his show yesterday.
We also try to cover news that we feel is good for people to learn, potentially provide a little bit more context. On Monday, we learned of a video that was made publicly available by Kyren Lacy's lawyer. In it, what we thought showed more context to the accident that inevitably led to the tragic loss of 2 lives, with Herman Hall, who dies in a car accident, and then Kyren Lacy, who later ends up killing himself because of the fallout of everything in which he was accused. We thought we had more context. Now more video has been made publicly available, and it shows even more context where Kyren Lacy is driving on the wrong side of the road and could have very easily made the case that he caused the car to swerve and cause the tragic accident. We apologize for adding any more heat and will continue to stay on top of the news breakings in this story because obviously it's tragically sad and involves an athlete's legacy. We'll see you in the next hour.
Scott Van Pelt also apologized last night for the comments that Ryan Clark primarily made on Monday Night Football. The person who has not said anything yet, Ryan Clark, at least as the time of this show on Thursday morning. How in the world could ESPN have allowed this to happen? And how in the world can they continue to employ Ryan Clark, who struggles to analyze anything more complicated than cover 2, and honestly is a toxic teammate on the air, as you saw with his situation with Peter Schrager and others over the years? Why in the world is he still employed? And why would ESPN give him a forum to opine on a criminal case that he's not sophisticated enough to understand, particularly when he didn't even go through the trouble to understand the full story here? It's embarrassing. It's potentially legally liability that could be associated with it. And Ryan Clark's job is not to do anything other than to analyze film and talk about basic NFL issues, which are not particularly complicated. Now, there were other athletes out there who have had takes that I think are wrong on this, but none of them, to my knowledge, has been given the full broadcast window of Monday Night Football with millions of people watching to try to make Kyren Lacy appear to be a victim when, in fact, he was, if anything, the criminal. And if he wasn't the criminal, if he hadn't killed himself, then he would have had an opportunity to defend himself against these charges, and maybe a Louisiana jury would have agreed that he is not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But the video is out there. He was in a 2-lane highway. He yanked his vehicle over in a no passing area at a high rate of speed past 4 other vehicles, yanked his car back in front of them, and then 2 cars that were coming towards him were so afraid that they were going to have a head-on collision that they panicked and felt the need to yank their vehicle as well in different directions that led to the death of a innocent man, according to all the witnesses there and according to the grand jury presentment that the Louisiana police were going to bring. Some people are saying, well, he was 75 yards away when the accident actually happened. Are you all morons? Do you know how quickly a car going 60-plus miles an hour moves? 75 yards is nothing. If you have ever driven on a 2-lane highway and you have ever seen a car yank itself out in front of you to try to illegally pass people, again, this was an illegal passing area, and you have ever had a car coming towards you at a high rate of speed while you are advancing on that car at a high rate of speed, it's effectively a game of chicken. It is very, very scary to find yourself in that situation. One driver facing the onrushing vehicle of Kyren Lacy immediately yanked to the right. The other driver, to avoid the car that yanked to the right, yanked to the left because otherwise that car would have hit the car directly in front of them, and so that car then hit the oncoming traffic. Kyren Lacy was, according to all the witnesses, at fault. He is not an innocent victim that has in some way been taken advantage of by racist police, as Ryan Clark clearly alleged. It's an embarrassment for ESPN. They should fire him over this. They should suspend him. And frankly, the producers who allowed this to occur on Monday Night Football, because I presume it was not on a teleprompter, there was no graphic at the bottom of the screen, I presume that it was not scheduled, should not have allowed him to take that position when he was so woefully misinformed. If ESPN had felt compelled to address this issue, they should have brought on actual lawyers, and they should have analyzed every aspect of the case in more detail than they did live on the air. I think ESPN opened itself up to a great deal of culpability, criminally, civilly, and I also think that Ryan Clark did open himself up to a civil lawsuit as well for what he said about all of these individuals. So, just FYI. All right, let me run through a bunch of stories quickly now because we got to schedule the Paul Finebaum story. Monday morning, I am just chilling in my new house in Florida, and I kick back and I get several sources who reach out to me and say, hey, Finebaum was pulled off of his regular hits. He was not on Sunday Morning Sports Center as he has been for a decade plus, analyzing the weekend that was in college football. He was not on First Take as he regularly is either. And this is a direct result, I was told, of him coming on my OutKick show. And Stephen A. Smith on – so I put that out on Monday. One of the ESPN PR people, a guy named Bill Hoffmeyer, says that is, I think he said it was totally false in a message to me. In fact, it was 100% accurate. And then because I called them on it, ESPN suddenly scrambles and decides that they're going to book Paul Finebaum on every show, Get Up, First Take, and SportsCenter on Tuesday, all of which was the direct result of them trying to cover up the fact that they had yanked Finebaum off of ESPN programming. All of that's true. All of it's 100% accurate. It wasn't just me who reported it, by the way. Alabama.com, which is the biggest newspaper in Alabama, confirmed it. On3 confirmed it. There were Front Office Sports confirmed it. I think even Awful Announcing confirmed it. I mean, I was 100% correct about this. And then Stephen A. Smith, when he welcomes Paul Finebaum on Tuesday, says, hey, we missed you. Here is what it looked like on Tuesday.
First things first. First of all, it's good to see you. I missed you last week, buddy. Number one. Number two.
That is Stephen A. effectively acknowledging what I said, which was Finebaum was pulled. And look, I think this was ham-handed. I think it was a poor decision by ESPN to make this decision. I think they're trying to send Finebaum a message for coming on with me and doing an interview, and they are angry at him, and that was their petulant, childlike response. I don't even necessarily disagree with ESPN's ability to do that, right? The only thing I characterize as unacceptable is they lied. They lied to all of you and said what I told you, which was 100% true, was false. There are a lot of people who disagree with me on a wide variety of subjects. That's life. That's the marketplace of ideas. Good for them. You make your arguments. I make mine. This wasn't an opinion. This is a fact. ESPN pulled Finebaum off the air after his interview with me from the moment that full interview aired until Tuesday when they tried to trot him back out there. When they leaked to a bunch of their sniveling media losers that Finebaum was not banned at all and was actually scheduled for First Take, Finebaum had actually not even received, per sources, an interview to go on First Take. They panicked. They got caught in a lie. And if they had just owned it and said, we were upset at what Paul Finebaum said, and we decided to send him a message by not allowing him to appear on air for multiple days in his regularly scheduled guest spots, I would have said, okay, I disagree with that decision. I think it was a poor one, but at least they're being honest. My issue with ESPN on this particular story is they lied to all of you. The facts that I have marshaled and laid out prove that they lied to all of you. And I don't like liars. And I certainly don't like people who lie about my accurate reports. So, Bill Hoffmeyer, a PR guy, is this what you wanted your career to be? Did you want to grow up and spend your entire adult life covering up lies from ESPN? It's pretty pathetic. Almost as pathetic as ESPN's decision to actually allow Ryan Clark to go on the air and falsely accuse Louisiana police of racism. In fact, Ryan Clark's actions are far worse, but it's not been a good week for ESPN when it comes to their choices that they've made with on-air programming and the lies and deceit that they have been willing to share publicly. All right, quick picks. PrizePicks. Jalen Hurts. Go to PrizePicks app. Use code OutKick. You get $50 when you play $5. I've got 4 quarterbacks easy here, all more. Jalen Hurts, more than 1/2 passing touchdown. Jackson Dart, more than 1/2 passing touchdown. Cam Ward, more than 1/2 passing touchdown. And Drake May, more than 1.5 passing touchdowns. That is the PrizePicks pick for the week. We narrowly lost last week when the Arizona Cardinals fell apart and were in a situation where they dropped the football short of the goal line. But all 4 of those pay off at 4.5 to 1. That is 4.5 to 1. The Arizona Cardinals allowed Cam Ward to go over his passing totals. That was the only one we lost last week because, frankly, they're morons, and the Arizona Cardinals gave away a win. So Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, and Drake May, all with more than 1 touchdown for Jalen Hurts, Jackson Dart, and Cam Ward. Drake May needs to have 2 touchdowns. These are passing touchdowns in order to end up as a winner. Belichick. Do we have the graphic of Belichick and UNC? This has turned, sadly, into a huge mess. I don't think that Bill Belichick is going to coach more than 1 season at North Carolina. Team is 2-3. They're on a bye this week. And the AD and Belichick had to issue statements saying, hey, we still like each other. This is like a couple that is inevitably going to get divorced, trying to tamp down public commentary in some way about the couple being unhappy. Belichick's been a disaster. I don't think UNC is going to end up bowl eligible. They're going to have a losing record. Their offense is woeful. They do not seem to be getting the most out of their players, and therefore I think the Bill Belichick experiment is going to go up in flames. Belichick would have been far better off from a coaching legacy perspective had he decided to retire when Tom Brady left New England. If he had done so, we might still argue about who was more responsible for the dynasty in New England. Instead, the Patriots fell apart and were awful with Belichick still at the helm. And now Belichick has gone to college and UNC is awful. The luster of Bill Belichick's coaching genius has worn off substantially, and he looks like what he is, a sub-500 coach who happened to get lucky enough to get the greatest quarterback of all time, which made him look like a far more successful coach than he actually is. Arch Manning getting unfairly attacked by The Athletic. I don't know how in the world you would allow this to be published at The Athletic. There have been a lot of busts. There have been a lot of flops over the years in college football. You guys can all name a huge number of them if you're actual college football fans. A lot of high 4-star quarterbacks, a lot of high 5-star quarterbacks even don't materialize into big-time players at the college level. Whatever you think of Arch, he is now the starting quarterback at one of the biggest programs in all of college football. He is a pretty solid player. Is he the greatest player who has ever lived? No. Is he even playing at a top half quarterback level in the SEC so far? Probably not. But he's a first-year starter. He has started a very few number of games. Got a huge game this weekend against Oklahoma. And he's shown flashes of brilliance and then also flashes of not so good, right? As young quarterbacks typically do. So the expectations for Arch were supremely high, but he can still end up a first-round quarterback if he finishes this season well. He could do it potentially this year. If he doesn't, then he could come back and start again next year and eventually work his way into an elite signal caller in the college level. The idea that you would attack him as a flop or the biggest flop of all time, as they tried to do in The Athletic, which is owned by the New York Times, I think is an embarrassment. There you see the graphic joined there. This is just a sign that these people have never watched college football because, again, whatever you think of Arch, he is far from the biggest flop in the history of college football. Also, much less serious, a couple of stories here in general. Joe Flacco has been traded from the Browns to the Bengals, a sign that the Bengals are truly desperate and just hoping that maybe, possibly, Flacco can keep them in the mix for Joe Burrow's eventual return, to maybe Burrow be able to play in the playoffs. I don't blame him. I don't think this is a bad choice at all. The Browns are essentially in the first overall quarterback sweepstakes. There are a lot of talented quarterbacks that are potentially going to be coming out in the draft next year. And so the Browns certainly, even though they took Dylan Gabriel and even though they took Shedeur Sanders, they are certainly going to be in the mix to take a first-round quarterback. But now that Joe Flacco has been traded, we'll see whether or not Dylan Gabriel or potentially Shedeur Sanders, either one, are actually good enough to be starters in the NFL. And I don't think this is an awful move for the Bengals because clearly Jake Browning was not giving them what they needed to see to be able to compete for a playoff spot, just tread water until Joe Burrow was back. Finally, and this is actually very serious, fingers crossed that we may have some form of peace returning to Gaza and Israel. Reports that these hostages that have been held by Hamas for over 2 years now, since the deadliest terror attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust, October 7th, 2023. You all know I traveled to Israel last December, and I went to the Nova Music Festival. I went to the kibbutzes where the attacks happened. I went all the way to the area where Hezbollah was attacking in the north of Israel from Lebanon. I went all of those places. I saw with my own eyes. I want there to be peace in the Middle East. I want everyone in the Middle East to have the same freedoms that every Israeli citizen does. And I hope that President Trump is able to get those hostages back. I met with the dad and some of the family members of the hostages. I can only imagine as a parent what the last 2 years of hell has been like if your family members were being held by Hamas. And I do hope that we can have peace in the Middle East. And I hope that some of the people out there that are such zealous attackers of President Trump, that have spent a decade labeling him as Hitler, that have spent a decade saying that anyone who votes for Donald Trump is a Nazi. Does it in any way strike you the cognitive dissonance in your brain, the fact that Trump is potentially going to enact historic, I hope, lasting peace in the Middle East and actually end a war, and that Trump would be the most popular person in Israel from an American presidential perspective of all time? Does that make you wonder a little bit whether the legacy media labeling Trump as Adolf Hitler and labeling him as a Nazi might possibly have been one of the most inaccurate, scurrilous attacks of a president's character in any of our lives? Would that make you think to yourself, hey, wait a minute, I've been arguing about being on the right and wrong side of history, and it turns out in being against Trump and his supporters, I'm actually the bad guy. I'm actually the person that is on the wrong side of history. That's what you should be thinking if you are an anti-Trump Democrat, a leftist, because Trump is the president of peace, and he is trying to bring peace to the Middle East. He's beloved by the people of Israel, and even now a lot of people in Arab states are looking around and saying, well, maybe President Trump has been able to bring peace to Gaza and end the killing on both sides, at least for a while. Now, unfortunately, we all know this is unlikely to last in the long term because Islamic fundamentalist terrorists are likely, unfortunately, to continue to attack Jews for the lives of every single person living here. All I will say is we would have peace in the Middle East, and one simple thing happen. If every country that wants to erase Israel from the map put down their weapons, we would have peace. If Israel put down its weapons, the country would not exist in a few weeks' time. That, my friends, is the truth about what is actually on the ground. And if you are a leftist committed to human rights, do you know the people who have the most basic human rights in all the Middle East? The Muslims who live in Israel. Love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. We will be back Monday. The Fox show is airing, and up now, The Fade. Again, we taped this on Thursday morning. So if something happened after Thursday morning that's not addressed, it's not me dodging it. It's probably just, think about it, the fact that we taped early in the morning. All right, love you guys. I will see you on Monday, and The Fade with Kelly Stewart is up now.